Hello, this nugget looks at the question of who is the borrower. Ships are commonly owned by single ship-owning companies. Where a group owns a number of ships, there is often a holding company with separate ship-owning companies beneath it, and often these ship-owning companies have a management agreement with a ship management company in the group which operates all the ships. In some cases there is no formal group structure, but each company is owned by the same individual or individuals. This structure gives rise to legal and practical issues when it comes to arranging the finance. The question is, who should be the borrower? If the loan is made to the parent company and security is given by the ship-owning companies, then this amounts to upstream guarantees. The ship-owning companies are allowing their asset to be used to secure the parent's debt, which is very similar to a guarantee and raises legal problems which we'll discuss in a moment. If a separate loan is made to each ship-owner to finance its ship, that results in a lot of documentation because you have multiple loan agreements instead of just one, and the lender is likely to want the loans to be cross-defaulted and cross-secured. Cross-defaulting loans means documenting the loan terms so that if the lender has the right to claim early repayment of one loan, they also have the right to claim early repayment of the cross-defaulted loan, so that if they have problems with one loan, they can call them all in. Cross-securing loans means documenting them so that each ship stands as security for its own loan, but also as security for the other financed ships. The lender will want the loans to be cross-secured so that if there's a loss for the lender on one ship, they can claim that loss against the other ships. Cross-security therefore again has much the same effect as a guarantee. The ship owners are allowing their ships to be used to pay the debts of other companies, so once again the legal issues with guarantees need to be considered. Before turning to look at the legal issues with guarantees, we need to look at one further option. This is the commonly used route of making a single loan to a number of different ship-owning companies, which are then made jointly and severally liable to repay the loan. The principal advantage of this over the option just discussed is that you only have one loan agreement, making the process very much simpler and more efficient. A joint and several borrowing is a borrowing made by a number of borrowers on the basis that, between them, they must ensure that the whole loan is repaid, but in addition each individual borrower is liable to repay the whole debt, regardless of the amount which that particular borrower received out of the loan proceeds. So the lender can, if they wish, choose to demand repayment in full from any one of the borrowers and its assets, leaving that borrower then to sue for a contribution from his co-borrowers. Effectively, to the extent that a borrower is liable to repay a greater sum than he himself actually received from the loan proceeds, the effect once again is similar to a guarantee. That borrower is accepting liability for a debt which was actually benefiting a different company. So again, the guarantee issues need to be considered. So, having highlighted the fact that all of these structures involve guarantee issues, let's now look at what those issues are. They're discussed in more detail in the nuggets on guarantees, but in essence, the problem is that company law and/or insolvency law in many countries imposes restrictions on the effectiveness of upstream and sister guarantees, i.e. those which are made by subsidiaries for the benefit of their parent or for the benefit of fellow subsidiaries, as opposed to downstream guarantees which are those made by a parent for the benefit of its subsidiary. The policy reason for these restrictions is that a company's assets should not be used for the benefit of its shareholders if that would be to the detriment of its creditors. Companies must pay their debts before they can distribute profits to shareholders. Upstream and sister guarantees are potentially disadvantaging creditors to the benefit of shareholders. As a result, many countries require there to be some good reason for the guarantor itself to give the guarantee. There must be a benefit to the guarantor itself. The precise requirements are different from country to country and are discussed elsewhere. For present purposes, there are 4 points to notice. Firstly, legal issues may arise under corporate law which is usually governed by the law of the place of incorporation, or under insolvency law, which is usually the law of the place or places where the company conducts business. Identifying what law might be relevant in the insolvency of a shipping company is particularly difficult because the business is truly global, and in many cases the actual running of the ship is conducted through a different company via a management agreement. This is discussed in the context of tax in the nugget on differentiating factors in shipping finance. Where the ship is owned by a single ship-owning company, it is rare for the shipowner to be made insolvent because it's usually much quicker and cheaper for creditors to take direct action against the company's only significant asset, the ship. Nevertheless, if a mortgage could be challenged under relevant insolvency law, creditors can be expected to make that challenge, so insolvency law issues, including the question of the effectiveness of any upstream or sister guarantee, need to be considered as part of the due diligence process, as far as it's practicable to do so. The difficulty will be much greater where security on a ship is taken purely as collateral security, as opposed to the situation where it's taken as cross-security. The next slide explains. What I mean here is that if the financing is a fleet financing for a number of ships, and each shipowner gives security on his ship as security for the whole loan, all the shipowners are benefiting from the financing. Under English law at least, that benefit would be sufficient to justify the guarantee aspect of the transaction. It would be more difficult if, in addition to taking security over the vessels being financed, the lender also wanted security over existing ships owned by a different group member. That shipowner would not be getting any benefit from the transaction, and so any security given by him would be more open to challenge. So in summary, the most common structure is to make the loan available to joint and several borrowers, and for the lenders and their lawyers to do due diligence as far as is practical on the guarantee aspects of the structure. The other point to notice is the significant difference in the situation where the debtor is a single ship-owning company, where insolvency is of less significance in practice, as opposed to the situation where the debtor has other assets, as would usually be the case, for example, with a corporate guarantor, where insolvency issues are critical. In these nuggets, I refer to the situation where the debtor has other assets apart from the financed ship as a corporate-based transaction. As a result of the single ship-owning structure, taking security on the shares in the shipowner is a viable proposition commercially. This may help to supplement the lender's enforcement options and is discussed elsewhere. The lenders are going to want to ensure that the company remains a single ship-owning company, so that, for example, income generated by the ship is not used to support other activities, but is dedicated to the business of running the ship and paying off the loan. Therefore, there will be restrictions on conducting other business, ring-fencing of income to ensure that it doesn't leak out, and possibly separateness covenants if there's a concern that relevant countries might not respect the separate identity of the company. Note, for example, that in the US, special purpose companies might not be regarded as separate on insolvency if they haven't been managed separately. This is discussed further elsewhere.